We are looking at question 2 from your free response 3 assignment, and we have a table that shows the short-run marginal revenue product of labor for a perfectly competitive firm. The firm is currently selling this product at a market price of $5. So the first thing we want to do is calculate the marginal physical product of the third worker. So what I did is I went ahead and just calculated that for all of them over here. So what we simply want to do is just divide, since the price is $5 and the first worker was able to produce $450 worth of this product in a day, that means that this first worker was able to produce 90 units, because 90 times 5 is $450. This is the revenue that that first worker generated by producing 90 units, and I'm not sure they say what it is. No, it's just something, a unit of something, right? Widgets, we'll say, right? Okay, so the second worker produced had a marginal revenue product of 500, so he or she produced 100 units. And the third worker, here's your answer, had a marginal revenue product of $450, which is 90 units. 90 times 5, the price is 5, is 450. And then I went ahead and calculated them all the way down, so you can see that there is diminishing marginal returns here, right? It goes up and then it goes down. So it goes like that, right? So because the cost does just, the marginal cost does just the opposite, right? And we've talked about that a whole lot over the year. So the next question is define the law of diminishing marginal returns and explain why it occurs. As more and more units of a variable input are added, and in this case it's workers, to a fixed input, the output increases at a decreasing rate. So the output, the overall output, the total output here is increasing by 90, and then by 100, and then by 90, and then by 80. So for example, the total output here with 5 workers is all of these added up. 90, 280, 360, 420, right? And then this would be 440, I think. I did that right. So you see that the total output is increasing at a decreasing rate, and that is because as we add more workers, typically they're sharing tools, they're sharing space, they're getting in each other's way, so that fourth worker didn't bring as much as the third worker did, and the third worker didn't add as much to the production as the second worker. And then that a sixth worker, by that time things were so crowded and there was so few, the tools and the machines were so, they're just not, there wasn't a lot for him to do, him to do here. So he was only able to produce 20 units. Okay, so that's the, I think that answers the law of diminishing marginal returns and why it occurs. Now, well, you can also say that another way of saying that the reason it occurs is because you have an overuse of a fixed input. So, and then that's really a different way of saying what I just said. If this were a firm that where the workers used computers, then at this point, when you start really getting a diminishing return, there's just not enough. The fixed number of computers are being overused, so that's why they're not producing as much, or any kind of a tool or machine or even space. Space can be overused. It can be crowded. It can be, or time even. I mean, there's all kind of, well, time's kind of a different one. But, anything you would count as a fixed input, like if these workers are painting and there's only 4 sprayers, well, or say, well, in this case, it looks like there might be 5 sprayers, and then the 6th worker didn't have a sprayer, so there wasn't a lot for him to do, right? That kind of thing. So, put this in your own words, but I think you get the idea of what it is. Okay, so moving on to, let's see, part C. Diminishing marginal returns first occur with the hiring of which worker for the firm. So when does the marginal return start to drop? And that's pretty easy to see. We go back, that we go from 90 to 100, and that's an increase, but then it starts to drop. It goes back down to 90 with the hiring of the 3rd worker. So diminishing marginal returns first occur with the hiring of the 3rd worker, right? Okay. Part D. What is the highest daily wage that the firm is willing to pay to hire the 5th worker? Well, that's easy too. This is simple stuff. We know that they're going to hire where marginal revenue product equals wage. So they're not going to pay the 5th worker more than his or her marginal revenue product. So the highest wage they would be willing to pay worker number 5 is $300 per day. Okay. And the last one, E. What will happen to the demand for labor if the market price of the product increases? Explain. Well, I'm going to show you this now, and you can explain this in your own words. You can show it as I'm showing it, or you can just explain it in a narrative. But I'm actually going to show you an example here. So let's go back. So we knew that from our problem, the question, that the price in this table right here, the market price was $5 per unit, and that's how we were able to compute our marginal product. Now, what if the price went up? So in question F or E, which one? Question E, it's saying what if the price, the actual market price, goes up, right? So let's say it goes up to 6. Well, that's going to change the marginal revenue product at every level of labor, at every quantity of workers, all the way from 1 to 6. It's going to, so instead of multiplying the marginal product by $5 to get the marginal product per day, we're going to multiply by 6. So the marginal revenue product is the firm's demand curve for labor, and we can see what's happening here. The demand curve is actually shifting out to the right with this higher price, and so we can show that right here. So this is what the labor market looks like in the market, and this is what the individual firm. Now this first demand curve right here, we can say is this demand curve, or this marginal revenue product, which is the same thing, right? Same thing, at a price of 5, right? Is right here. And then when we raise the price goes up at every output, at every quantity level of worker. So that's a shift. So we shift out to the right. The wage doesn't change because in a perfectly competitive labor market, the firm is a wage taker. So the wage is the supply curve, the labor supply, which is just a horizontal curve that's constant. I should say constant. So what happens is there's going to be a shift out and then a movement along this supply curve to the right, which means that the firm is going to now be able to hire more workers. So the answer is that the demand for labor labor will increase because the increase in the product price raises the marginal product of labor, or the marginal revenue of product, I should say. The marginal revenue product, which is this here, and right, so we're going from here to here. And in our example of raising the price from $5 to $6 per unit. So the bottom line here is, with a higher market price for whatever they're making, the firm is going to be at the same market wage. The firm is going to be able to hire more workers. Okay, and the demand for labor is going to increase. Also say that they're one and the same. If the demand shifts right, if the demand increases, the firm is going to increase their quantity of labor hire. Okay, and that takes care of question 2 for your free response 3. When we come back, we'll look at question number 3.